They say the city of Neo-Tokyo never sleeps, but for me, it just dreams in shadows. My name is Jessica. I'm just an artist trying to survive in a world that forgot how to look at the stars. Every day is a blur of sketches and cold coffee until the rain started whispering to me. I took a shortcut through the industrial district, a place most people avoid after sunset. That's when I saw it. A faint, golden glow coming from behind a pile of rusted metal crates. Everything changed the day I found it. A pen that didn't just write. It remembered the moment I touched it. The air felt electric, like the past was trying to speak to me. I didn't know it then, but this pen wasn't a gift. It was a bridge to a secret I wasn't meant to find. I rushed home, my heart pounding like a drum, sensing that my ordinary life was officially over. Little did I know, this simple pen held the lost memories of a girl who vanished years ago. I placed the pen onto the page, and my hand moved on its own. I wasn't drawing, I was recording. An image began to form. A girl, older than me, standing on the very bridge I crossed tonight. She looked terrified. She was looking at something hidden in the shadows of the water. I tried to pull my hand away, but the pen was cold, freezing, like it was drawing from a tomb. Then, the sketch changed. It showed a symbol, a broken crown under a midnight moon. I recognized that symbol. It was from the old legends, the ones they say aren't real. The pen stopped. My room went silent, but my heart was racing faster than ever. I looked at the girl in the drawing again. She wasn't just a memory, she was a warning. Someone was calling out for help, and I was the only one who could hear them. I had to go back. I had to find where she was taken. The rain had turned into a downpour, but I didn't care. I needed to see that alley again. The neon signs of Neo-Tokyo hummed, but tonight they sounded like a warning. I approached the pile of crates where I found the pen, but it was empty. Not even a trace. Then I heard it, a soft, rhythmic clicking sound coming from the shadows of the wall. I pulled out the pen. The moment I held it, it began to vibrate, pulling me toward the brickwork. I traced the bricks. There was a seam, a hidden door that shouldn't have been there. My heart hit my throat. I pushed, and the wall groaned, giving way to a hidden staircase. This wasn't just an alley. It was an entrance to something deeper than the city foundations. I took a deep breath, clutching my notebook. There was no turning back now. Whatever secret this city was keeping, I was about to find it. The air down here was different, thick with the smell of old paper and ozone. I reached the bottom, and my jaw dropped. It was an archive, stretching for miles. Thousands of blueprints, gears, and sketches. This was the city's heart, hidden from everyone. I realized the pen wasn't just a tool, it was a key. It was meant to unlock this very room. As the light filled the hall, the blueprints started to move, projecting themselves into the air. They were maps, not of streets, but of the city's hidden infrastructure, the veins of Neo-Tokyo. Then I saw it again. The girl from my drawing. She was in a projection on the far wall. She wasn't just a memory. She was a guardian, and she was still trapped down here. I knew I couldn't leave her. I had to find the source of that projection. But just as I stepped forward, I heard the heavy sound of a door locking above me. The door was sealed tight. I was locked in a cage of history, and the lights were fading. I remembered the pen. If it could record the past, maybe it could rewrite the present. I pressed the tip to the cold metal of the door. I didn't draw a key. I drew a memory of it opening. The metal groaned. The ancient lock didn't just break. It remembered being unlocked. It worked. I stepped through, but the archive was changing. The hallways were shifting. The entire archive was a living machine, and it was trying to keep its secrets buried. I had to stay ahead of the logic. I had to draw my own path. Every line I drew became solid. I wasn't just an artist. I was an architect of the escape. But the girl from the projection, she was leading me somewhere. A central chamber. I followed her light. Whatever was hidden at the center, I was ready to face it. The central chamber opened up. It wasn't a library anymore. It was a cathedral of gears and lights. And there she was, the girl from my drawings, standing by a pedestal of pure white flame. She wasn't a ghost. She was a recording, a loop of light waiting for someone to break the cycle. I walked toward her, the pen in my hand trembling. The room seemed to hold its breath. As I got closer, her image became solid. She reached out, and for a second, I felt real warmth. Her name was Elara, and she was the original architect of the city's secret pulse. She had been trapped here for a century, trying to keep Neo Tokyo from losing its way. She didn't need saving. She needed a successor, someone who could draw the future, not just record the past. The pen began to hum, a sound so loud it felt like it was coming from my own bones. With one final stroke, I didn't just touch the crystal, I became part of the city's story. The shockwave passed, and suddenly, the static in the air was gone. The city, it felt alive. I looked at my hands. They were glowing with the same golden ink that flowed from the pen. Outside, the neon lights of Neo Tokyo weren't just flickering anymore. They were shifting colors. People in the streets below stopped, looking up at the sky. They could feel the shift, too. I realized Elara hadn't just given me power. She had given me a responsibility. The city was waking up from 100-year sleep, and I was its new voice. But not everyone wanted the city to wake up. Deep in the shadows, the silent ones were stirring. They were the ones who had kept the city in the dark, feeding off its forgotten memories. I had to protect the core. I had to ensure the light didn't fade again. The real battle for Neo Tokyo hadn't ended. It had only just begun. The silent ones didn't speak. They moved like ink dropped in water, fluid, dark, and hungry. I didn't have time to think. I let my instincts take over. Sweeping the pen across the air, they crashed into my light, hissing as if the gold were burning them. They feared the truth. I realized they weren't just monsters. They were manifestations of the city's suppressed memories. They were the grief, the failures, and the anger that the city had tried to erase. If I fought them with force, I'd just be feeding their anger. I had to change the narrative. I began to draw, but not a wall. The ink transformed. The dark figures stopped. I drew a memory of home, of the warmth people once felt here. Their shadows turning from black to a soft, golden gray. I wasn't destroying them. I was giving them the peace they had been denied for so long. The archive grew quiet. For the first time in a century, the history of this city felt resolved. The silence was peaceful, but I could feel the city above still gasping for air. I walked to the central crystal. It wasn't just a power source, it was a bridge. By touching it, I could see everything. Every alley, every home, every flickering street lamp. The city was a broken mosaic. I had to piece it together, line by line. It was exhausting. Every connection I made felt like a piece of my own soul being shared. But slowly, the flickering signs above stabilized. The gray skyline started to glow with life. I felt the people below stop and look up. They weren't afraid anymore. They felt at home. Elara stood beside me. She wasn't solid, but her hand rested gently on my shoulder. She whispered a secret. The city wasn't just machines. It was a memory that humanity had forgotten to love. I finally understood. I wasn't just drawing lines. I was reminding the city of its own heart. The power was intoxicating. I could rewrite any part of the city. I could make it perfect. I could delete the sadness, the struggle, the poverty. I could turn Neo Tokyo into a paradise. But then I looked at my sketches. They weren't just lines. They were pieces of people's actual lives. If I made everything perfect, the people wouldn't be growing anymore. They'd just be shadows. Elara watched me, her translucent eyes full of silent questions. She had faced this choice, too. To be an architect of a city, you have to trust the people living in it to build their own lives. I realized my job wasn't to control the city. It was to hold the pen until someone else was ready to take it. I started drawing one last thing, a set of doors that would make this archive accessible to everyone. The archive didn't need to be a secret. It needed to be a classroom for the future. As the doors opened, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The real work was just beginning. News spread fast. People started gathering at the entrance I had created. They didn't see a scary secret. They saw history. They saw their own potential. The archive is no longer a cage. It was a library of dreams that had been locked away. I watched from the shadows, knowing my role was changing. I wasn't the guardian anymore. I was just a witness. And honestly, that was enough. Elara's form began to fade. Her duty was finished, and she was finally free. She didn't say goodbye. She just left behind a final, encouraging warmth in the air. I looked at the pen one last time. The gold was gone. It was just a regular pen again. But I didn't need magic to change the world. I had my voice, and that was enough. The city was breathing again. And for the first time, I felt like I was breathing with it. Weeks passed, but the energy in the city never faded. It had just shifted. The archive became a community center. Artists, engineers, and dreamers all gathered there. They were building the future, using the forgotten knowledge of the past. It was beautiful. I spent my days there too. Not as a guardian, but as a teacher. I had so much to share. The silent ones, they hadn't vanished. They had just stopped being silent. They were finally being heard. Their grief was being turned into art and innovation. People often asked me if I missed the pen, if I missed the magic. I'd just smile. The real magic wasn't the pen, it was the people. It was always them. Neo Tokyo was no longer a city of shadows. It was a city of stories, and every one of those stories was being written by the people who lived them. Looking back, the city wasn't broken because it lacked power. It was broken because it had forgotten how to listen to its history. The lesson I learned wasn't about the magic in a pen. It was that every one of us is an architect of our own reality. What we choose to remember changes everything. So, never be afraid to pick up the pen and rewrite your narrative. The world is waiting for your story to be told. If you enjoyed this story, please support us by liking and subscribing. Join us for the next chapter of Neo Tokyo Z. Thank you for being part of this journey. Remember, the future is yours to draw. See you next time.